Hello and welcome to our 1:09 a.m. English New Edition. Here are the headlines. The President of the Republic visits the French military base. The head of state, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, visited the French airbase this morning after a visit, accompanied by his Minister of Defense, Mr. Hassan, and the Chief of the General Staff of Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim. The President of the Republic was received by Air Brigadier General Eric Garnes and the French Ambassador to Djibouti, Mr. Christophe Guilou. After the national anthem honors at the flag, the President conducted a troop review. Then between President Guelleh and the General had a one-on-one meeting. They discussed at length the security situation in our region. In this difficult and dangerous context, the Republic of Djibouti is an expression by guaranteeing lasting peace and security at all times in order to remain a haven of peace conducive to the development of cultural exchanges. Once finished, the President headed towards the helicopter with the Ambassador, always accompanied by the French General, and the Ambassador heading for the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier, which docked this morning at the port of Djibouti. The President of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, visited the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, which arrived in our country earlier this morning in the invitation of the French authorities. President Guelleh served aboard the main French Naval Air Force is part of the latest visit to our country, a privileged stage of the important mission, clemenceau of pre-positioning and possible dissuasive actions to which he is assigned over the period from March to July 2019. In addition to this first mission component, the Charles de Gaulle is also assigned as part of the current deployment to strengthen French military cooperation with its traditional partners and allies, including Djibouti, and located throughout the itinerary, along which it is planned between the Mediterranean and the Maritime Ocean. The presentation received at the Admiral Squares, acting as the General Staff within the Charles de Gaulle, on the strategic objectives of the aircraft carrier was the main moment of the President Ismail Omar Guelleh visits to the warship. The tour made on the bridge, the platform from which the warship is led, and the explanation received on the Ghost, the main deterrent forces of the flagship of the French Navy, also made up the other stage of this head of state's visit to the Charles de Gaulle. During his visit on the main French aircraft carrier, President Ismail Omar Guelleh was accompanied by the main Djiboutian officials in charge of defense and security, including the Minister of Defense, Mr. Hassan Omar Mohammed, and the Chief of General Staff of the Djibouti Armed Force, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, the Chief of General Staff of the Republican Guard, Colonel Mohammed Jama' Douali, and the Chief of National Security, Mr. Hassan Said Khaire. It is also worth noting the presence within the delegation that accompanied the President of the Republic on the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier of the Secretary General of the Presidency, Mr. Mohamed Abdullahi Wa'ais, before his arrival on board a helicopter of the French forces stationed in Djibouti. On the Charles de Gaulle, the head of state was received at the French air base in Djibouti, the A1A8, where, in the presence of the French ambassador to Djibouti, Christophe Guilou, and the commander of the FFDG, General Eric Garnes, he was granted a major troop review. After his visit to the French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, the president will return in his helicopter to the French air base. At the end of the visit, Air Brigadier General Eric Garnes presented the President of the Republic with gifts as a gesture of friendship between the two countries. The President of the Republic thanked the General for his visit, for the warm welcome he received. Let us recall in passing that these two visits testify to the excellent fraternal relationship that Djibouti and Paris have enjoyed since the first phase of our history. The crucial issues of environmental cleanliness and public health were discussed at length this morning at an important meeting held at the People's Palace under the auspices of Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed. This solemn meeting brought together no less than 10 members of the government around the Prime Minister, surrounded also by representatives of the military staffs of the various constituted bodies. Thus, the Ministers of the Interior, Agriculture, Housing, Education, Health, Education, Budget and Decentralization took part in their discussions, which focused on ways and means of combating environmental pollution by keeping our capital clean and thus making it permanently healthy. The Mayor of the capital, the Vice President of the UNFD, as well as the Secretaries General of Public Department, including those of the Prime Minister's Office and the Minister of Justice, were also present. This meeting thus provides the basis for wide-ranging consultation on cross-cutting issues aimed at improving capacities for responses and national action against all forms of degradation, whether environmental or otherwise. Also, the purpose of the day's meeting involving several departments and constituent bodies was to implement measures to clean up and beautify the urban environment of the capital and thus translate into reality the ambitious project entitled Djibouti Clean City. Similar meetings will continue regularly in permanent concern on the part of the government to meet in the long term all the challenges of progress, public health and development that may have an impact on the socio-economic level. Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, who gave a speech at the meeting, pointed out that it is very important to consult regularly. Among the main concerns are overcrowding in some residential areas, the massive presence of floating population, climatic hazards resulting in rising tides, as well as the real need to consolidate infrastructures for connecting to wastewater treatment networks in order to preserve cleanliness. Together, to various speakers of this meeting highlighted the need to improve the full and active involvement of the population and civil society. This is to instill and develop civic engagement approach on the part of the citizens as part of an approach of patriotics, devotion endorsed in more concerted than media-oriented ways. At the approach of the celebration of the 42nd independence, the mayor of Djibouti City, Fatuma Awali Osman, made a statement at the RTD. She said Djibouti City Hall's main mission is to serve the people of Djibouti fully. With our official partner, among others, the RTD, we attend to organize activities or even to reach in color on the celebration of the 42nd birthday of our dear country. This event will aim to commemorate and trace the events that led to the independence of Djibouti. These events will take place in historical places, as for example the place of the 27th of June, according to the Mayor Fatuma Awali Osman. During this period of celebration, we organize mini caravans in partnership with the RTD in 3 communes of the capital, namely the municipality Razdika, Bulaos and Balbala as usual. On the evening of June 27, we will hold a colorful evening at the esplanade of People's Palace. Patriotic songs will be part of the evening, she said. Not to mention, we will organize in the afternoon at the esplanade of the People's Palace a kermesse for the not so young. What is again this time the special needs children will participate this kermesse with the support of the National Agency for Disabled People created by the President of the Republic of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh. The Mayor of Djibouti City, Fatima Awal Osman, concluded his intervention that it is essential to sensitive, young and old on the history of our dear country. The RTD has already started its activities dedicated to the commemoration of June 27, including its tour in the capital, tonight starting at 21 to RTD and offering a live broadcast as well as radio TV, which will take place near to the UNFD, a highly symbolic venue, since the national flag was raised for the first time at this place in June 27, 1977, at the midnight by the father of the nation and first president of the Republic, Hassan Guled Abtidon, Allah yarhamu. The IGAD Council of Ministers held its 68th extraordinary session on 19 June 2019 in Addis Ababa under the chairmanship of His Excellency Gedu Adargechu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and chairperson of the IGAD Council of Ministers. The session was attended by His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Djibouti. After extensive deliberation on the situation in the Sudan, the Council 1 recalls the communique of the 46th ordinary session of the IGAD Council of Ministers held on 27 February 2019 in Djibouti and the 67th extraordinary session of IGAD Council of Ministers on South Sudan held on 7 May 2019 in Juba. 2 further recalls the decisions of the African Union Peace and Security Council adopted at its 840 meeting held on 15 April 2019, 846th meeting held on 30 April 2019, and 854th meeting held on 6 June 2019 on the situation in the Sudan. 3 expresses its deep regrets over the tragic incident of 3 June 2019 and calls on the TMC to exercise maximum restraint to avoid further loss of lives and further calls on all parties to avoid action that will escalate tensions. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Djibouti has talked about the importance of the meeting with his colleagues and to focus on the situation in Sudan. On Monday, 24 June 2019, Djibouti companies registered on the electoral rolls are invited to vote for their representative at the General Assembly of the Djibouti Chamber of Commerce. The election will take place from 8 to 18 at the Chamber of Commerce for Djibouti City and from 8 to 14 in the prefectures for the 5 regions of the interior of the country. A graduation and certification ceremony was held this morning at the Djibouti Civil Protection Fire. The objective of this training was to have a basic training and your development during intervention with many victims and on the crisis management system. The training lasted 7 days and was delivered by the International Emergency Fire Brigade. The ceremony was presided over by the Director General of the Civil Protection, Colonel Mahmoud Musa Mahmoud, and Colonel Abdullahi Abdi Farah, Director General of the National Police. About 20 officers from the Fire Brigade and the National Police participated in the training, the ceremony including the presentation of the certificate to the winner. The General Director of the National Police, Colonel Abdullahi Abdi Farah, congratulated the Fire Brigade officers who work in full consultation with their fellow police officers and recalled that the two professions are quite different, counting on the Director of the Civil Protection. Colonel thanked the trainers of the international agency who took the trouble to travel. The new railway line company welcomed the passenger train from Addis Ababa last night as usual. The passenger train resumed its service during this summer period towards Addis Ababa. The holiday makers were delighted with the resumption of the train and showed up this morning at the gas station to go to Ethiopia. All the employees of the EDR, as well as the senior officials of the Ministry of Equipment and Transport, were present to ensure the audience of this happy event. The Deputy Managing Director of the EDR company, Mr. Hassan Kamil, in his speech did not fail to thank the two ministries of transport who work closely together. Following the mission order, the Minister of Labour in charge of administrative reform, Mr. Isman Ibrahim Roble, a joint audit bringing together the main labour market institutions, is currently underway. In addition, initially undertaken to formation of two control groups has now focused on companies and other services, such as family economic entities and NGOs located on the outskirts of Dudub Alale to Ali Ade. Once again, the objective of this control is to raise awareness among companies and reassure all workers in the region that the state has a religion system in place to ensure compliance and with labor legislation throughout the national territory through this minority campaign led by the General Labor Inspector, Mr. Abdi Farah Idli, and his team. One of the missions of the Ministry of Labor is also to promote good practices in healthy labor relations, encourage the framework for decent work, create and perpetuate a stable and healthy climate culture for refugee workers as well as national workers in all matters related to labor legislation. Thus, the officer of the General Labor Inspectorate explained in length and detail to company officials that refugee workers enjoy the same rights and benefits as Djibouti workers, and that the labor code makes no distinction between a Djibouti worker and a refugee worker. This action by the Ministry of Labor was welcomed by regional officials who stressed the importance of setting up an inspection unit in Ali Sabih to ensure that the rights of workers in the region are guaranteed on a continuous basis. Yoga presentation was organized last night at the Kempinski Palace by Indian Embassy officials. Yoga is one of the 6 schools whose goal is liberation. It is a discipline or practice common to several people aimed at achieving the unification of the human being in its physical, psychological, and spiritual aspects. The 4 major traditional ways of yoga, they are exposed in text. It is between the philosophy of yoga and the Yoga Sutra. The reference text attributed to Patanjali and a synthesis of all existing theories. The ceremony was attended by several Djiboutian and also by Indians residing in Djibouti. It is as part of the promotion of the discipline in order to know the origin of yoga, which is a culture specific to Indians. The ceremony was attended by the head of the Indian Consular Mission, Mr. Nakil Kotari, and the ambassador of the United States of America in Djibouti. Moving to the international news, world record, more than 70 million refugees and are displaced persons by the end of 2018. This is a record that the world will have gone well without. By the end of 2018, there were nearly 71 million displaced people, half of whom were children. The cause: war, persecution, or poverty. Among them, 4 million Venezuelans have fled the economic and political crisis in their country. This is revealed in an annual report of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. This number has increased by 2.3 million compared to 2017. Of all the needs of last year, only 7% of what we have requested in terms of resettlement has been met by countries such as those of the European Union and other regions. Given the situation of the vast majority of refugees, the European Union should further increase its financial support to these countries, which they desperately need, says Gonzalo Vargas Llosa, UNHCR Regional Representative for European Affairs. In 2018, the Syrian conflict continued to produce large numbers of refugees and displaced persons, followed by Afghanistan, Southern Sudan, Burma, and Somalia. Turkey is the country with the highest number of refugees, followed by Pakistan, Uganda, and Sudan. The first Western country is Germany. And that's all for this news, and thank you for watching us. Have a nice night.